What is the shittiest city you've visited only once and completely refused to return? Hollywood. What a shitty hole. For those that don't know, the Hollywood Boulevard that you know is about 2 blocks long. It is lined with washed up actors in costume who try to get in the back of your pictures and then yell at you when you refuse to tip them. My uncle punched an Elvis impersonator in the face once when my family went to visit this place. Your uncle is a patriot. Agra. India. The Taj Mahal was one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in my life. But the surrounding city is an absolute shithole. The fact that a horrible, grimy, incredibly poor entire city surrounds the pristine walls of the Taj made it a weird place to visit. 2. I agree. It was the pits. Throw in regular power cuts even at a decently rated hotel every few hours along with hawkers selling complete tea. It was wank. I've heard of way too many people who go out of their way to tour my hometown of Scranton, Pennsylvania because it's the setting for the Office sitcom. Only problem is, Scranton is known for 3 things: political corruption, crippling debt, and the Office. Double quote. They didn't even film the show here. Just the establishing shots for the intro. Needless to say, they all wasted their time and mine by tying up traffic. Yeah, I mean they picked Scranton as the setting because of how depressing it is. I enjoy The Office but I have no desire to set foot in Scranton, or Slough for that matter. Colorado City. Arizona. Stopped for gas. All the locals stopped what they were doing and watched our every move. Nobody would speak to us even after we said hello. Strange. Never stop in Colorado City. I used to drive through there on my way from home to college. Colorado City is full of polygamist cultists started by Warren Jeffs and are totally insular. Their society is rife with abuse and pedophilia. I would always feel so bad for the women in their pioneer style dresses and giant 80s braids. They would sometimes come up to our Walmart and there was always one man watching over his horde of women and children as they did everything for him. It's a truly terrifying place. Didn't only visit it once. I was born in it. Juarez, Chihuahua, Mexico. I've been back a handful of times in the past 3 or 4 years. For a while it was the murder capital of the world, beating out some active war zones. Decapitated bodies hanging from overpasses and lying on sidewalks was a daily occurrence. The last time I was there was for Father's Day. I took my dad to visit my grandpa. We saw a man get shot on our way to a restaurant and he was still there on the street a couple of hours later on our way back. I wish I could say I love where I come from, but I don't. I know some unsavory people and some unsavory places because of where I was born and grew up. Is that a good thing? Maybe when visiting. But I would hate to live there or have to raise kids there. It is a shitty place. Edit. I wish some folks would stop with the insults. I wish I could love my hometown. But I just can't. I wish things were different and the great food and some great people could take back the fact that I can't feel safe in it. But that isn't how things are. It sucks that things are how they are there. But that is life. Fact is fact. Salina. KS. I pulled in off the highway and there was a motel, a church, and a liquor store. Nothing says culinary excellence like building a meal from liquor store snacks. The room next to mine in the motel had plywood for the front door. There was a minivan across the parking lot that was selling something. As cars would come park right next to it throughout the night, a guy would run out the van into the said car, then back into his van. Meth deals can be fun to watch, I guess. The poor motel guy was the owner's son, and he gave me the Wi-Fi password and wished me luck with it. No Wi-Fi. Atrocious. Around 11 PM a highway crew pulled up with some work trucks, and they rented out the 2 rooms to my left. Commenced the middle of nowhere Kansas party. From the god-awful country rap rock they were blasting to the presence of 2 loud friends that came later. I've seen and heard all I need to in regards to this little slice of heaven. Pretty sure the girls that showed up in the Honda were hookers as well, as one of them took another dude out back around for some fun time. They talked in front of my door for about 20 minutes before heading to Action Town. Such poetry. Such America. Aligarh, India. There is literally garbage everywhere. You can barely walk on foot without having to cover your nose. It smells horrible. If you're a girl and wear anything that shows a little skin, like a tank top or capris pants, be prepared for catcalls. Can't go for a morning walk without running into some idiot taking a shit on the street. Worst place ever. Salton Sea. It reeks of fish guts, is 100 degrees and has a fly population of 100 s per square inch. Never again. I have a house there by the sea. Do not ever visit from beginning of May until the end of September at least. During that period it's hot, muggy, saturates with giant horseflies, and reeks. From late fall early spring it's actually very temperate with highs of 85 and lows of 60s. With pretty low humidity. Some days it stinks, but you spend most of your time off-roading in the area west of it anyways. If you think Salton Sea is bad, check out Slab City. Salton Sea at least is a retirement vacation place for passionate off-roaders or desert lovers for the most part, and has a very small population. Slab City is filled with drifters, meth, and unsanitary conditions, with the only housing being shitty trailers. The most vile place in California hands down. And it always stinks like the sea there. Rio de Janeiro. Hot and humid. Crime ridden. The tourist spots are expensive. Their museums are tiny. Buses are places where you get robbed the fastest. The food's not even as good as most other locations. Lastly, a special spot is reserved for the tourist police, which served more as a deterrent to foreigners committing crimes than the locals. Saw them bust a guy for smoking a joint, but not the dude that sold it to him right in the open. Johannesburg, South Africa. Went on business and can say without a doubt, it is the world's most expansive toilet. There isn't a redeeming quality about that city. The people are f-ked beyond belief. The city isn't just unsafe but incredibly f-king dangerous. People sit at cafes in Mabanang sipping an espresso or a beer talking about life as though that place is normal. Colleagues would talk about home invasions like I talk about a minor sunburn. Everyone has stories about murders, break-ins, and violent crime. No one roams at night. And you're trapped in whatever district precinct you live in. The nicest area of Joburg, Sandton, is no nicer than middling places in Toronto, London or New York despite being their showpiece of a world-class city. Double quote. Everyone downs prescription meds like it's candy and tell you that you just gotta live in SA. Double quote. Fuck that. Joburg makes Detroit look like the nicest, warmest, friendliest place on the planet. Beijing. Nasty. Smoky. You can see the air. Most days you have to wear a smoke mask. Go out for 15 minutes. You smell like a coal furnace. And the people, rude as hell, run into you, shove you, and nobody talks. They all yell. They hate everyone. Although to be fair, if I lived there and had to deal with the traffic, I would too. Traffic is a nightmare. The lanes and lights are just suggestions. It seems. It's a real life game of bumper cars. And the taxis will always try to cheat you. Pro tip. No matter what you order from a restaurant, any restaurant, if it comes in a bottle, make them open it at your table. Beijing. Most polluted place I've ever been. The smog was inside the hotel lobby. Worst drivers on earth. Lines on the roads and even suggestions. People just follow the cars in front of them. By inches. Not feet. So many accidents they deserve it. Crowds. Holy FCK, it's like if Disneyland had a free admissions day on a major holiday. And nobody has any sense of personal space. I might have gotten laid 3 times walking down the street and wouldn't have noticed. And because of that insane pollution I was sick for 3 weeks coughing up whatever that tea is that's floating in their air. Yo FCK Beijing. This will probably get buried. I was teaching English for a year in Pattaya and was approached by a local gang. At first they asked me about the girls I was teaching, aged 11. Things like who had a home, who didn't, etc. How would I know? Dot. After I badly blew them off, they started hanging out around the school. I told the police, who essentially told me not to worry about it. Fast forward one of my last weeks there last June, and my GF is visiting from England. We are at a small dive bar and I go to use the bathroom. I stumble into a stall and see the same officer getting oral sex from someone who couldn't have been older than 15. Sickus. Never going back. Kingston, Jamaica. Third world poverty. Just a dirty, crime-filled area. Kids begging in the streets in the middle of the day. People urinating out in the open. Homeless everywhere. Jamaica in general. Definitely stay in a group. On a guided tour. You do not explore the island on your own. You will be robbed. The island resorts paint a very different picture. Yeah, I don't really get what people expect when they go to Jamaica. It is well known to be a place full of violence and gang warfare. Do they expect friendly island types saying "Ee mon, have a coconut and some ganja" amidst some reggae and a dancing mango? Delhi. Hands down a complete f-king hellhole. I explored the whole of Rajasthan. Headed to Mumbai and then down through Goa. Out of all those cities, towns and villages, including Agra, which is notoriously hellish, Delhi is by far the worst place I have been on the planet. Unfortunately, I was forced to return in order to fly home. I did try to change our flights so we could head home from Mumbai rather than return, but it wasn't possible. Delhi is a complete clusterfuck assault on the senses. I hit 2 people in 12 hours who tried to rob my partner. And when you got back to the hotel at night, where my legs were bare from wearing shorts, it was covered in stinking dust. Also, it's the only place I saw the guy standing in the road jacking off to oncoming traffic. Yeah. We were similar. Straight out of the airport to our hotel, arranged taxi driver who was quite clearly drunk. Hire both for a bonkers ride through town and seemingly couldn't find the hotel. Was just the introduction of 3 days of cons, crime, tourist traps, filth, and the general complete muggy overcrowded pit of inhumanity that is Delhi. I should note we are savvy enough not to have got conned by anyone, and me at 6'5" and Mrs. Monty at 6 feet a short sharp fuck off was usually enough to scare whoever needed scaring completely shitless. The Kuta area of Bali, Indonesia. I've been to a lot of Asian countries and sort of got the gist of what the cities were like. But FCK Kuta was unbearable. Just full of drunken Westerners. Particularly Aussies abusing the locals. Gives us other Australians a hard rap when visiting there. The old story of Bali would be a nice place if it weren't for all the Australians, bogans combined with cheap flights and access to cheap credit. I'm happy to see that Detroit isn't one of the top cities on this list. We've had a rough past, but there have been a lot of improvements lately. Detroit is like Berlin after the war. You have the safe sectors around the stadiums, Greek town, etc. But venture too far off into the Soviet sector, East Side, and you are literally gambling with your life. Dubai. I got a locals tour and got to see the labor building the fancy skyscrapers and a small part of the conditions they endure. It was heartbreaking. Add in the dust everywhere and the abhorrent manners of the so-called elite classes, and I know I never want to go again. I will say the pauper's meal I got to have with the local and his friend's family was wonderful, as was the one Diram ferry trip. Niagara Falls, NY. 20 years ago. It was shithole. I drove through it recently and it is now a shithole with awkwardly placed casino in it. Yeah, especially when Niagara Falls, Ontario is right there to see and so much better. I think it might be the tackiest place I've ever been to though. I found it tacky, but not too tacky. It was a pretty enjoyable place. But I am kinda glad we left after 3-4 days, since we'd seen just about everything there. Niagara-on-the-Lake is a very cute nice town north of the falls on the Canadian side. I enjoyed that and would have liked to stay longer. Bakersfield, Ca. Some of the places in this thread are bad because of the high crime. Some of them are here because they smell bad. Or you can't drink the water. Bakersfield is a functioning town. It has reasonable employment. The roads work. The crime rate is somewhat high. but nothing too out of the ordinary. So why is it on here? It is the closest thing to purgatory I have ever seen. It's 2 hours from anything. It's in the middle of the Californian desert between San Jose and LA. It's hot, flat, and all the potentially interesting views are covered by oil pumps. There is nothing to do in Bakersfield, other than your odd movie theater or maybe bowling alley. But surely it is cheap and affordable to live here? No, it's not. $1,600 for a 2BR apartment. Bakersfield is the worst. Flint. Me. Had my car stolen a couple years ago and they found it there. Ditched in a field. Was only there for an hour before I heard gunshots. There was almost a fight that broke out at the gas station when I stopped to get gas before leaving. Now the water isn't even safe. Seriously. Avoid Flint. It's like Detroit's toilet. Reading. PA. It feels like one big bad neighborhood. I saw Louis C.K. there on his last tour. And when the special came out, 2017, he specifically called out reading for being shitty. I grew up in Southeast PA. One time in elementary school we had an assignment where we had to create a tourism brochure for the city of Reading, PA. I am certain that our teacher was at least partially motivated by the laughs. Romulus, Michigan, was supposed to stay there for 2 nights, but elected to drive the 12 hours back home after the first night. 4 guys staying in one room during college called down for linens and towels and were told that the cleaning staff called out for the next 2 days. The entire cleaning staff called out and the front desk didn't have keys to the cleaning closet. Couldn't leave quick enough. Govan, Glasgow, Scotland. The city centre of Glasgow is a modern contemporary wonder. The residential areas around Glasgow, not so much. I've never seen a man having a wonk into a glass bottle while sucking off a dog while screaming about how the mind police took his soul. Obviously it is not on smack. And I probably never will. Because I don't go to Govan. El Paso. You would think a city of this size would have some meaningful infrastructure. But it is a clusterfuck. My one weekend there was marred with the most traffic accidents I have ever witnessed on a per mile ratio in my life. It isn't just the god-awful drivers. It is the rolling labyrinth of mazes that they call a highway system that leads to this misery. When we first arrived, there were 11 accidents in a 14-mile stretch. What kind of ratio is that? On top of that, I watched cops pull people over for seemingly petty offenses all around the city. You'll never see as many blue lights flickering in your life as you will on a drive through El Paso. I can't even begin to describe how much I hated this city. Take the traffic of LA, with the roads of Detroit, and the tourist navigation friendliness factor of the Mojave Desert, and you have El Paso. Gary, Indiana. I was driving through at 3 p.m. and I saw maybe 3 people in the entire city. There were houses where there were no doors. Some of them even had lights. On top of that, I'm pretty sure the people there mate with fish from the surrounding ponds and swamps cause the people there and in the nearby gas stations had a rather fish-like appearance. Either that or there's some sort of chemical spill in their water. Which I could also believe. I always felt like I was of average attractiveness. But going through Gary, Indiana made me realize I'm very grateful that I don't have that Innsmouth look. I may get down votes. I saw it once and experienced what I wanted to. But I have no need to ever see Las Vegas again. It is a monument, I know. But a monument to what I don't need to know anything more about. I think you really have to go there with a fuck it attitude. While in Vegas I have gone in the best swimming pools on earth. Shot machine guns. Gone indoor skydiving. Had a bust made of my head. Gone on that indoor roller coaster. Spent 3 days awake. And generally had a great time. I have never really spent much money there, though not drinking is the key to this, and just basically said, yeah, I'll try that to anything, legal and within reason. If you go there expecting to get rich or be amazed by shows, which are really expensive, then you are going to be disappointed. Red Rock Canyon is one of the most beautiful places on earth, and it's so close to Vegas that you can rent a car just for that day and head out there. Incredible climbing, hiking, and just general beauty. It's hard to find any huge urban city in the US with that much nature on all sides. Plus the Hoover Dam and the Grand Canyon are all day trips from Vegas. Limerick, Ireland. Everywhere I went in Ireland on holiday was beautiful, had lovely people, and felt like a place I'd want to live. Except Limerick. Dirty streets, rude locals, and a dark and creepy atmosphere made me realize why everyone told my sister, who we were dropping off to study abroad, that Limerick is nicknamed Stab City. Double quote. Rocky Mount, NC. The name sounds like a quaint rural town. It used to house a lot of clothing and manufacturing industries in the first half of the 20th century. Then offshoring hit, and the town went to absolute shit. You can see the poverty all around. It's absolutely depressing. A lot of eastern North Carolina is a shithole. I used to live in Weldon for work, and Rocky Mount is where I would go if I didn't want to drive an hour to go somewhere that resembled a city. i.e. Raleigh or Colonial Heights. It's sad how many abandoned and rotted houses line the streets in Rocky Mount, Weldon, Garrisburg, Roanoke Rapids, etc. And the mall in Rocky Mount is absolutely depressing. Marrakesh, FCK. The hassle. They, street vendors, were totally okay with putting their hands on me to slow me down and buy some shitty only to retaliate with no touch me when I would swap their hands out the way. The rest of Morocco is pretty damn beautiful though. Newark, NJ. Dirty, grey, sad, and just generally a shithole. The city doesn't have a heartbeat or any kind of vibrant feel to it. It's downright depressing. 5:0 PM. Sitting at a stoplight. Nice summer day. Windows down. I hear a stream of liquid hitting the sidewalk like someone running a hose from 3 floors up. Look over to see everyone walking away around the shirtless guy taking a massive piss in the doorway of this building. Cops behind me looking at him too. Green light. I drive off. The cops do too. Nice place. Prince George, BC. Apart from being famous for drugs, the pollution is worse than mega cities like Tehran or Mexico City. The city stinks and the smell of air makes you puke. I love to take road trips up north, live near Vancouver, so I drove through Pig's Gorge a lot. Here's some highlights. Almost hit a guy running across a street downtown. He had cardboard wings taped to his arms. When I stopped to yell at him, he tried to throw himself on my car to, I assume, make it look like I hit him. I reversed out and drove the wrong way down a one-way street past a cop through a red to get away from him. I made eye contact with the cop who shrugged at me and drove away. Someone tried to mug me outside of the BMO on the north side of town. In broad daylight on a Saturday. I yelled into the bank and he ran away. A street person was begging for change outside of a 7/11. I bought them a hot dog. They yelled at me for money, and when I refused, threw the hot dog at me. FCKU buddy, I would have eaten that. Aberdeen, Washington. I spent a few days there doing some work for a local business, and it's the most depressing place I have ever been to. It's an old logging town that was exploited for its resources and never recovered after the Great Depression. I asked a bartender what sustains the town, and he honestly could not give me an answer. You may have heard of it at some point, as it is the hometown of Kurt Cobain and Chris Novoselic of Nirvana. I can honestly say that after spending a few days there, I have a much better understanding of where grunge music came from. Gary, Indiana. I was driving cross country with my father, who is a musician. It was getting towards night and my dad was like, "Hey, Gary, Indiana. Like the song. We have to stay there tonight." Yeah. No. We pulled off the interstate and were immediately in what looked like a good area to be robbed and shot. Then we got lost trying to find the interstate again. My dad finally stopped at a gas station for directions. And I, an 18-year-old girl at the time, had a horrifying panic attack because I couldn't decide where I was more likely to die. By leaving the safety of the car but sticking by my dad, or by locking the car doors and hiding in the backseat by myself. For the record, while I am a suburban white girl, I was raised a stone's throw from Nick and was, at the time, driving my mom through some really bad neighborhoods 2-3x month to go to a certain hospital for transplant follow-up. Like, gunshots a few streets over every now and again. Especially if the appointments lasted towards dark. And I was fine. Maybe it was just that section of Gary. But I will never ever go there again. My dad, the most unflappable hippie you've ever met, was scared. This man walked right up to a schizophrenic man wielding a gun and talked him down. Nothing shakes my father. But that place did. Never again.